Restaurant CEO goes undercover and finds sleeping employee. What he discovered about her changed everything. The CEO of the restaurant chain disguises himself and finds an employee sleeping in the storage room. What he discovered about her changed everything forever. Marcus Thompson never imagined that his life would change completely on a cold Wednesday night in the dimly lit corridors of a restaurant he had built from nothing. At 38 years old, he owned one of the most successful restaurant chains in Chicago. A man who had everything money could buy, but felt empty inside. His days were filled with endless board meetings, profit reports, and solitary dinners in a penthouse apartment that felt more like a museum than a home. Marcus had built an empire, but lost his humanity in the process. That's why 3 weeks earlier, he had made a decision his partners thought was completely insane: to disguise himself as a kitchen worker to understand how his company really operated. He wanted to know if the success he saw on paper matched the reality of those who worked for him. Wearing a simple white chef's coat and using the fake name Mike Johnson, Marcus discovered a world that existed right under his nose, but which he had never truly seen. On that particular night, as he walked through the basement corridors that smelled of industrial cleaner and grease, he heard a soft sound coming from the dry storage room. It was almost imperceptible, like someone trying not to make any noise at all. Marcus stopped in front of the metal door with peeling white paint, his heart beginning to beat faster without knowing why. Something in that moment told him his life was about to change forever. He hesitated for just a second before slowly turning the handle. The door opened with a metallic creak that echoed through the poorly lit corridor. What he saw on the other side made his world stop completely. A young woman was curled up on the floor between boxes of canned goods and cleaning supplies, sleeping on a pile of clean kitchen towels. Her dark brown hair was stuck to her sweaty face, and she wore the grey uniform of the kitchen staff, all wrinkled and stained. The storage room was small and stuffy, with no windows, lit only by a fluorescent light that flickered occasionally. When the corridor light hit her pale face, she suddenly opened her eyes, and Marcus saw there not just a tired employee, but someone who carried the weight of the world on her shoulders. "Please," she whispered, her voice trembling with such fear that the words barely came out. "Please don't fire me. I was just resting for a few minutes. I swear." Marcus stood there, wearing his fake uniform and feeling as if he was seeing his company and himself for the first time through the eyes of someone who really needed to work to survive. The woman before him wasn't just afraid of losing her job. She was terrified of losing the only thing keeping her alive. Her sneakers were so old you could see her toes through holes in the front. Her hands had deep calluses that told a story of years of hard work, and she clutched a small photo against her chest, as if it were the most precious thing in the world. In that moment, Marcus Thompson, the successful businessman who had never bothered to learn his employees' names, felt something break inside his chest. And for the first time in years, he didn't know if what was breaking was his heart of stone, the walls he had built around his soul. Marcus helped Elena out of the storage room and accompanied her to the small break room at the end of the corridor. The place was quite simple, with some broken plastic chairs, a microwave that made more noise than it heated food, and a coffee machine that had seen much better days. Still, it was much better than the cold floor of the storage room where she had been sleeping. The environment smelled of reheated coffee and cigarettes, that typical smell of a place where tired people come to seek quick relief before returning to work. "Sit here," he said, pointing to one of the least damaged chairs. "I'll make you some strong coffee." Elena sat down slowly, as if every movement caused pain throughout her body. Marcus noticed she was still holding that small photo in her hand, pressing it against her chest like a protective amulet. Her hands trembled a little, not just from nerves, but from exhaustion, that kind of tiredness that accumulates day after day. "Is it of your family?" he asked, offering a cup of steaming coffee that smelled strong and bitter, but at least was hot. She looked at the photo, then at him, and nodded. "My daughter Sophia. She's 8 years old, but she's been through so much already. She has leukemia." Marcus sat in the chair next to her, being careful to maintain a distance that wouldn't make her uncomfortable. He could see she was deciding whether to trust him or not, whether it was worth telling her story to another stranger. "Do you live together?" he asked carefully. "We did," she said, her voice becoming even lower and heavy with sadness. "Until 6 months ago, when I could no longer afford the rent on our apartment in Pilsen. Now she's staying with my sister Carmen, a nurse who knew my mother. She's a saint, but she already has her own family to take care of. I sleep wherever I can, most of the time here at the restaurant." The story began to unfold slowly, like a ball of yarn unraveling. Eleanor had been one of the best students in the culinary arts program at a community college downtown. Full scholarship, excellent grades, professors who said she had a bright future ahead, working in top-tier restaurants. But when Sophia was diagnosed with leukemia in the second year of college, everything began to crumble like a house of cards soaked by rain. "My daughter fought the disease for 8 months, Eleanor explained, holding the cup with both hands to warm her cold fingers. "At first, I tried to balance classes with the hospital, but when the cancer spread, she needed full-time care. I dropped out of college in the middle of the semester to be with her 24 hours a day. We spent all our savings on expensive medications that insurance didn't cover, on private tests, on alternative treatments that gave us hope. I even sold our furniture to pay for a private clinic." Our final months, Marcus felt a painful tightness in his chest, seeing the pain in her eyes. "And when she went into remission, you were left with nothing. She's been in remission for 4 months now," holding my hand and whispering that she was proud of me, that I was the bravest mother in the world, Eleanor said, her eyes filling with tears. She tried to hold back by blinking rapidly. "But when the treatment ended, I was without money, without a job, with debts at the private hospital where she was treated, and unable to return to college because I had lost the entire semester. The rent was overdue. The landlord didn't want to hear about our situation, and within 2 months we lost our home. That's when everything collapsed at once." Marcus knew well the weight of difficult decisions in the business world, but had never imagined someone losing everything by choosing love and family loyalty over personal success. He looked at Eleanor with completely different eyes now. This wasn't just a tired employee sleeping at work. This was someone who had sacrificed her dreams and future to care for her family. Someone who continued fighting even when everything seemed completely lost and hopeless. "And now you work here overnight to send money to your sister, to care for Sophia, and try to save enough to maybe one day return to school. I sleep here at the restaurant because I save on rent, food, bus fare. Every dollar I save, I keep, dreaming that I can still become a chef someday." She completed the sentence. "I know it must seem like an impossible dream, but it's the only thing that keeps me going every day." In that moment, Marcus realized he had found something that all the money in the world couldn't buy. A person with a truly good heart, someone who had never given up doing the right thing, even when the right thing cost everything she had. In the following nights, Marcus began to observe Eleanor work in a way he had never paid attention to any employee before. He changed his patrol schedules to coincide with her shift, always maintaining his false identity as a maintenance worker. What he saw impressed him more than any revenue report he had ever analyzed in his life. The restaurant operated 24 hours, but during the overnight hours, the movement was much lighter. Just some late-night diners, and the night staff keeping everything clean and organized for the next day. Eleanor didn't just prepare food at the restaurant. She cared for each dish if it were for her own family. She arranged each plate with almost religious care, left small garnish flowers made from vegetables on the sides of dishes, and always checked 3-4 times if everything was perfect before sending each order out. It was as if she put a piece of her soul into every job she did, transforming a simple task into something full of care and dedication. Marcus noticed that she always took a little longer than the other employees, but the result was visibly superior. One Thursday night, around 2 a.m., Marcus saw her consoling an elderly customer who was crying at a corner table. The gentleman was in distress because he had lost his wedding ring somewhere in the restaurant during dinner. It was a simple ring, somewhat worn gold, but one he had worn for more than 50 years since he married. "Don't despair, sir," Elena said with the sweetest and most welcoming voice in the world. "Let's look together calmly. I'm sure it's here in some hidden corner." Marcus watched Elena spend more than 2 hours meticulously searching for that ring. She searched every corner of the dining room, looked under tables, inside napkin dispensers, even in the most impossible and unlikely places. She dismantled the drain in the bathroom sink, searched in drawers, until she finally found the ring hidden between the cushions of the booth where he had been sitting. When she returned the ring to the elderly man, he hugged her as if she were his own granddaughter. "Thank you, my dear," the gentleman said, crying with relief and gratitude. "You have a heart of pure gold. This ring is all I have left of my wife who died last year." Elena just smiled and said, "I understand perfectly, sir. Sometimes the most important things in our lives are the ones we almost lose." "I'm very happy I could help." Marcus watched this entire scene hidden behind one of the restaurant's decorative columns and felt something strange and powerful happen inside his chest. It was as if someone had lit a warm light in a place that had been dark for years. When was the last time he had witnessed such genuine kindness expecting nothing in return? When was the last time he himself had shown this selfless kindness to someone? After the customer left, radiant with happiness, Marcus approached Elena, who was putting away cleaning materials in the cart. "You did something very beautiful today," he said. She shrugged, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "Well, it was just what anyone would do, right?" "No." Marcus shook his head firmly. "Most people would have given up after 15 minutes. You searched for more than 2 hours." Elena stopped arranging the cart and looked at him. For the first time since they met, Marcus saw a small genuine smile light up her face. "You know, Mike, my mother always said something that never left my head. You never know what war another person is fighting inside." That ring must have been the only good memory left of his wife. Marcus remained silent, absorbing those simple but profound words. Elena continued working, but he noticed she limped a little when walking from one side to the other. Her old sneakers were clearly hurting her feet, probably causing blisters and pain. "Are your sneakers uncomfortable?" he asked carefully. "Oh, they're fine," she lied. But Marcus could see the grimace of pain she made when she thought he wasn't looking. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep thinking about Eleanor's hurt feet. The next day, he bought a pair of new, comfortable, good quality sneakers in the right size and left them in the locker where she kept her personal materials. Along with the sneakers, he left a handwritten note: "Feet that carry a kind heart deserve all possible comfort." When Elena found the sneakers the next day, Marcus was watching from afar, hidden behind one of the industrial washing machines in the basement. He saw when she opened the rusty metal locker and found the box wrapped in simple gift paper. He saw when she read the note and held the sneakers against her chest. He saw when her eyes filled with tears of someone who wasn't used to receiving kindness from strangers. "Who did this?" she asked the empty corridor, looking around as if expecting someone to magically appear to claim the good deed. Marcus came out of hiding, trying to seem casual and disinterested. "Found something." Elena showed the sneakers, still with tears shining in her eyes. "Someone left this for me. I don't know who, but ... single quotes." Her voice failed a little. "It's been a long time since anyone did something kind like this for me. Must have been someone who noticed you deserved it," Marcus said, feeling his heart tight from seeing how something simple could mean so much to someone. From that day forward, conversations between Marcus and Elena became the most anticipated and important part of his nights. They began meeting on the emergency staircase, a forgotten and somewhat hidden corner of the restaurant where no one ever went. It was a somewhat dark place, lit only by the emergency light, but quiet and private enough for intimate conversations. Elena always brought two sandwiches wrapped in napkins, one for her and another she timidly offered to Mike. Marcus never refused, even knowing she barely had money to make food for herself. "Why do you do this?" he asked one night, taking a bite of the simple ham and cheese sandwich she had prepared with so much care. "Do what?" share your food with me. You know there's not much left for you." Elena was quiet for a moment, fidgeting with her fingers, as she always did when thinking about something deep and important. "When I was a child, my mother always made extra food, even when we barely had enough for the three of us. I always asked why, and she said something I never forgot. Elena, shared hunger hurts much less than lonely hunger." Marcus felt a knot form in his throat. How many times had he dined alone in expensive and sophisticated restaurants, surrounded by important and influential people, but feeling completely empty and isolated inside? "Tell me more about Sophia," he asked, wanting to know better about the daughter she loves so much. Eleanor's face lit up in a way Marcus had never seen before. It was as if someone had lit a bonfire inside her. "She's an incredible person, you know. She can't run around like other kids because of the treatment, but she communicates everything with her eyes and with gestures that only I understand. When she's happy, she claps in a very specific way that only she knows how to do. When she's sad, she gets very quiet and holds my hand very tight, without letting go. She loves to draw and can create the most beautiful pictures with just crayons. I can visit her every Sunday morning," she said, and Marcus could hear all the love in the world in her voice. "It's the only day I have completely off. I always bring some sweet treats I manage to buy at the bakery, and we spend time drawing together. She always looks at me with those big, bright eyes, as if asking when we're going to be able to live together again." Marcus saw pain mixed with love in Eleanor's eyes. "And what do you tell her?" "That soon," she whispered, her voice almost disappearing. "I always say that soon we'll be together again, but soon has been 6 months now and she can't understand why we're separated." That night, Marcus left there with a strange and new feeling in his chest. For the first time in his life, his money and business problems seemed small and insignificant compared to the pain of a family separated by poverty and lack of opportunities. Marcus spent the next nights awake in his penthouse apartment, browsing the internet, making calls to medical contacts, and trying to understand how he could help without revealing who he really was. He discovered clinics and specialized centers that offered not only medical care for children like Sophia, but also art therapy, educational programs, and even play therapy, which would be perfect for someone who loved to draw like Eleanor's daughter. The problem was the monthly cost of these treatments. The best rehabilitation centers charged amounts that would be completely impossible for someone earning minimum wage working nights at a restaurant. But for Marcus, money had never been a real obstacle to solving problems. On Friday night, Eleanor arrived at work more exhausted than Marcus had ever seen her. She could barely keep her eyes open while pushing the cleaning cart through the restaurant's endless corridors. Her hands trembled from exhaustion, and she stumbled twice just in the first hour. It was clear she hadn't slept at all in the last 24 hours. "Did you sleep at all yesterday?" Marcus asked when they met on the usual staircase, genuinely worried about her condition. "I slept, yes, a few hours," she lied, but it was obvious it wasn't true. "I spent the night at the public library, using the free internet to look for government programs that might help Sophia. Maybe there's something I don't know about yet." Marcus knew the time had come to act. He could no longer keep watching her destroy herself when he had the power to solve the problem with a simple signature. During the week, he had prepared everything with the utmost care and discretion. He took a manila envelope from his pocket, an envelope he had prepared with all the care and attention to detail. "Eleanor," he said, extending the envelope to her, "I want you to read this very carefully." She looked at the envelope if it was something dangerous. "What is this? Please, just read it first." With trembling hands from nervousness and curiosity, she opened the envelope slowly. Inside were official documents from one of the best pediatric oncology and rehabilitation centers in downtown Chicago, along with a formal acceptance letter for Sophia Martinez. All monthly treatment costs were marked as fully covered by a private social program. Eleanor read once, then again, then a third time, as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing with her own eyes. Her hands began to tremble so much that the papers shook like dry leaves in the wind. "I don't understand any of this," she whispered, her voice almost disappearing. How is this ... Who did this ... This must cost a fortune every month. Someone who believes that mothers and daughters should be together, and that everyone deserves an opportunity, Marcus said, trying to keep his voice firm and controlled. But I can't accept something like this. I can't let a complete stranger pay for such expensive treatment for my daughter. This isn't right. Marcus sat right next to her on the cold step of the stairs. Sometimes, accepting help is the most difficult act of courage that exists in the world. Elena looked at him with eyes overflowing with tears that now ran freely down her face. Mike, why would someone do something like this for us? You barely know us. I know enough, Marcus said, feeling that every word was completely true. I know you sacrificed your entire life for others. I know you treat every person as if they were the most important thing in the world. I know you share your last sandwich with a co-worker you just met a few weeks ago. But I don't deserve all this, she cried. Everyone deserves a second chance in life, Marcus said firmly. The question is, will you have the courage to accept yours? Elena looked again at the documents, then at Marcus, then at the wrinkled photo of Sophia she always carried in her pocket. For the first time in months, she could see a small but real light at the end of the dark tunnel her life had become. Elena took Sophia to visit the treatment center on Monday morning. Marcus, still maintaining his false identity, managed to be nearby by chance, observing from afar as she walked through the clean and well-lit corridors with her daughter at her side. The center was located in a better area of downtown, in a modern building with well-maintained gardens and a welcoming atmosphere that contrasted with the harshness of the public hospitals they knew. Sophia was exactly as Elena had described. A thin and small girl for her age, with large and expressive eyes that seemed to understand everything, even without being able to run around like other children. Marcus saw her sit at the art table in the therapy room and draw a simple but beautiful picture of a house with flowers. Her small fingers found the right colors, as if they had a life of their own, creating beauty where before there had only been blank paper. She has a very special artistic talent, said the main art therapist to Elena, smiling while observing Sophia draw. We can develop these natural abilities quite a bit. Art is one of the most powerful forms of communication for children going through what your daughter is experiencing. Marcus, hidden behind the glass door of the room, saw Elena's face transform completely. For the first time since he met her, she smiled for real, in a full and complete way, a big and luminous smile that lit up her entire face and made her eyes shine like stars in the night sky. It was the smile of someone who had just witnessed a miracle happen right in front of her. When she returned to the restaurant that night to work, she was completely different. There was a lightness in her steps, a hope in her voice that Marcus had never heard before. It was as if someone had taken a backpack full of stones off her back. She even arrived humming softly a song that was playing on the radio. Mike, she said when they met on the usual staircase, barely able to contain her joy and gratitude. I don't know how to thank you for what you did. Sophia loved the center. She even smiled at the art therapist, and she almost never smiles at strangers. She's going to be fine there, Marcus said, feeling a happiness that no professional achievement had ever given him. And you know what? She continued, her eyes shining with hope. For the first time in a very, very long time, I feel like I can truly breathe. It's like a giant weight has been lifted off my back, and I can walk upright again. Marcus felt a deep satisfaction that no record revenue reports had ever given him. Seeing Elena's genuine happiness was worth more than all the million-dollar contracts he had ever signed in his business life. But then she said something that made his heart jump with both fear and joy at the same time. You know, Mike, I was thinking, maybe we could go out for a real breakfast sometime. I mean, when I managed to save up some money to pay, of course. Marcus felt the world spin around him. It wasn't just because she was inviting him out, but because he realized he was lying to the most important person he had ever met in his entire life. Elena, you don't need to answer now, she said quickly, her cheeks turning red with embarrassment. I know it must seem kind of weird. An invitation from a woman you found sleeping on the floor of a storage room. It's not weird at all, Marcus said quickly. It's just that it's kind of complicated. Elena nodded, misinterpreting his hesitation. I understand perfectly. You probably already have someone special in your life. It's not that, Marcus said, his heart beating irregularly. It's just that there are some things about me that you don't know yet. Everyone has their secrets. Mike, what really matters is who you are when no one is looking. And when I was at my worst moment, you were kind to me, without expecting anything in return. That tells me everything I need to know about who you are inside. That night, Marcus stayed awake until the sun rose, looking out the window of his penthouse apartment at the city, beginning to wake up below. He was thinking about whether he had made the biggest mistake of his life by approaching Elena this way, lying about who he really was. How could he explain that the biggest lie of his life was the name by which she knew him? How could he tell her that he wasn't the humble worker she thought, but the boss who had the power to change her life with a single word? The situation became really complicated when Elena was called to the Human Resources office on a Friday morning. Marcus had spent most of Thursday stuck in an external meeting with international investors, discussing the possible expansion of the restaurant chain to other cities. It was the kind of meeting that required a suit and tie, the kind of commitment he couldn't cancel, even wanting to be at the restaurant during Elena's shift to make sure everything was okay. When he finally returned to the office in the late afternoon, he went straight to a board meeting that was already delayed. He was still wearing his dark grey imported suit, the silk ties slightly loosened after the long and tiring day. It was only then that he learned the news through his personal assistant, who entered the meeting room with a worried and urgent expression. Mr. Marcus, said Jennifer, his secretary for more than 10 years, approaching discreetly the oval table where the directors were discussing numbers. I need to speak with you urgently. It's about that kitchen employee from the night shift. Marcus felt his stomach contract and a bad feeling take over him. What happened? She was called for a disciplinary meeting this morning. It seems the night supervisor caught her sleeping on the restaurant premises in the early hours of yesterday. The Human Resources Department processed the dismissal for serious violation of the company's internal regulations. Marcus felt his blood freeze in his veins. The HR department had total autonomy for dismissals due to disciplinary violations. It was one of the policies he himself had implemented years ago to streamline administrative decisions and prevent small problems from reaching the board. He never imagined this autonomy would turn against someone he truly cared about. When did this happen exactly? He asked, already getting up from the leather executive chair. The meeting was this morning, but she's just leaving HR now, Jennifer responded, checking her watch. Marcus dropped all the papers on the table, ignored the surprised and confused looks of the directors, who didn't understand why the CEO was so upset about a kitchen employee, and ran out of the room. In his haste and desperation to reach Elena, he didn't even think to change clothes or get the fake uniform he kept in the office. He went down the stairs two at a time, his suit wrinkling, his tie swaying, his heart beating irregularly. He arrived in the basement corridor exactly when Elena was leaving the small human resources room. She had tears streaming down her face, holding a white letter in her hand, the dismissal letter he recognized immediately. When she looked in the direction of the stairs and saw him running down, her expression changed completely. Shock and confusion took over her face. Mike, she said, blinking several times, as if she couldn't process what she was seeing. Marcus stopped in the middle of the corridor, breathless and sweating, realizing too late the terrible mistake he had made. There he was, dressed in a suit that cost more than 3 of her salaries, Italian silk tie, imported dress shoes, running down to the basement as if his life depended on it. Mike, what ... Why are you dressed like this? She asked, approaching slowly and suspiciously. Don't you work in maintenance? Marcus opened his mouth, but couldn't find words that made sense. How to explain that? How to explain that a maintenance worker was wearing a suit that cost the equivalent of 2 months of her salary? Single quotes he began, but his voice failed completely. Elena looked at him from head to toe, noticing every revealing detail. The expensive and well-cut fabric, the gold watch on his wrist that she had never seen before, the dress shoes that shone like mirrors. "Who are you really?" she whispered. Before Marcus could answer anything, the restaurant's security chief appeared in the corridor. When he saw Marcus there, he quickly approached, worried about some possible emergency. "Mr. Marcus," said the man, making a small respectful bow, "I didn't know you were down here. Did some serious emergency happen? You came running down." The silence that followed was deafening and heavy as lead. Elena looked from Marcus to the security guard, then back to Marcus. The shock on her face was like a knife straight to his heart. "Mr. Marcus," she repeated slowly, as if the words were poison in her mouth. "He called you Mr. Marcus." Marcus felt the world crumble under his feet. "Elena, I can explain everything, Marcus," she said, taking a step back. Marcus Thompson. Her eyes went over his suit again, now understanding everything with painful clarity. You're the owner of the restaurant." It wasn't a question. It was a statement full of horror, betrayal, and disbelief. "All this time," she continued, her voice trembling with anger and hurt, "all this time you were blatantly lying to me. You're my boss, Elena." "It wasn't a lie about who I am inside," Marcus said desperately. "It wasn't what?" she screamed, throwing the dismissal letter on the floor at his feet. "Just your entire identity. Just the fact that you're the owner of everything, while I slept on the floor like an animal." "It was never like that." "It was," she interrupted, tears running freely. "Now I understand. You watched me struggling, saw me at the worst moment of my life, heard all my problems, and all the time you were having fun at my expense. The rich man playing at being poor. I fell in love with you," Marcus said, his voice breaking with emotion. "You fell in love with what? With your good deed? With your charity project?" she asked, pointing at his suit. "Look at yourself. Look at these clothes. That must cost more than I make in 6 months. Marcus looked at his own suit, if seeing it for the first time. "Elena, this doesn't make a difference. Doesn't make a difference." She laughed, but it was a bitter laugh without joy. "Of course it doesn't for you. Nothing makes a difference when you have everything in life. I was just your entertainment, your adventure as a bored rich man wanting to feel useful." And with those cutting words that completely destroyed Marcus, she turned and ran down the corridor, leaving him standing there in his wrinkled suit and broken heart, with the absolute certainty that he had lost the only person who had ever made his life have any real meaning. The first days after the discovery were the worst of Marcus's life. He tried to return to the normal routine of meetings and business decisions, but nothing made sense anymore. The results presentations seemed empty and unimportant. The financial reports awakened no interest, and he found himself looking at the maintenance uniform he had kept in the office drawer, as if it were a precious relic of a life he could never have back. Elena, meanwhile, returned to the harsh and difficult reality she had tried to leave behind. Her sister Carmen received her back in the small apartment, without asking questions. But the space became even more cramped and uncomfortable with 4 people sharing 2 tiny rooms. The sofa bed in the living room became Eleanor's bed again, and she spent nights awake, looking at the cracked ceiling and thinking about how naive she had been to believe that someone like Mike could really care about her genuinely. "You seem different, sister," said Carmen one morning, serving watered-down coffee with powdered milk for both. "Did something happen at your work?" "I lost my job," Elena replied dryly, stirring the sugar with more force than necessary. "But I'll find another one quickly." Every day she went out looking for work, knocking door to door at clinics, offices, cafeterias, supermarkets, anywhere that might need someone desperate for an opportunity. But without references from her last job, doors closed one after another, always with the same polite excuse. She took Sophia to therapy. She knew Marcus was still paying. The administrator had made it clear. He continued covering all costs, but she didn't know how to stop this without hurting her daughter. "She's progressing in a surprising way," said the art therapist on a Wednesday afternoon. Yesterday she drew a complete picture without stopping once. "It's rare to see this kind of evolution so quickly in such a short time." Elena smiled forcefully, but inside she felt a painful mixture of gratitude and anger. Each of Sophia's progress was a constant reminder of Marcus, of how he had transformed their lives so generously and how everything had been based on elaborate lies. It was on a Thursday, a few weeks after the devastating fight, that everything changed once more. Elena was in the waiting room of the center when a nurse ran in her direction with a very worried and urgent face. "Mrs. Martinez, you need to come quickly. Sophia had an accident in the art therapy room." Elena's heart stopped beating for a second. She ran through the corridors until she found her daughter on the floor of the room, conscious, but with an ugly cut on her forehead that was bleeding a lot. An ambulance was already on the way. "What happened?" she asked desperately, holding Sophia's hand, who looked at her with scared and confused eyes. "She slipped on the wet floor and hit her head on the corner of the table," explained the therapist, visibly shaken. "It doesn't seem to be anything too serious, but we need to take her to the hospital for all necessary exams." At the hospital, Elena spent endless hours waiting for news, sitting in those uncomfortable blue plastic chairs in the emergency room, holding a bloody tissue that Sophia had used on her forehead. She didn't have money to pay for private exams, and the hospital was crowded and slow, as always on weekends. It was when she was filling out the emergency paperwork that she heard a familiar and unmistakable voice behind her. "All the bills go directly to me. I want the best available doctors, all necessary exams, a private room if she needs to stay hospitalized." She turned slowly and saw Marcus talking to the hospital receptionist. He was no longer in a suit. He wore faded jeans and a simple cotton shirt, as if he had run out of the house without worrying about appearance. When their eyes met, she saw the same desperation and genuine concern she felt in her own chest. "How did you know what happened?" she asked when he cautiously approached. "The center called me. Since I'm responsible for the program that covers the treatment, they notify me immediately of any emergency or accident." Elena nodded, not knowing exactly what to feel. Anger, gratitude, confusion, everything mixed in a tight knot in her chest that hurt to breathe. "She's going to be fine," Marcus said softly, sitting in a nearby chair but respecting the distance. "The doctors said it wasn't anything serious, just a scare." They sat in awkward silence for what seemed like an eternity, until Elena finally gathered the courage to speak. "Marcus, I need to pay you back all the money you spent. I can't continue accepting all this." "Why?" he asked, turning to look at her attentively. "Because it's not right. I can't be indebted to you for the rest of my life." "It's not a debt," Marcus said firmly. "Then what is it?" "Love," she interrupted, her voice loaded with bitterness. "You don't understand. I need to be able to take care of my daughter alone. I need to know I'm capable of doing this with my own strength, without depending on anyone's charity." "But why does it always have to be alone?" Marcus asked genuinely, not understanding. "Why can't you accept help from someone who cares about you both?" Elena turned to him, her eyes shining with contained tears and accumulated pain. "Because when you have money to spare, you can disappear at any moment when you get tired. You can change your mind. You can find another more interesting person to help. You can get tired of playing the Good Samaritan. But when it's my fight, when I'm the one battling with my own strength, no one can take that away from me ever." Marcus was quiet for a moment, absorbing the depth of those words. "What if I tell you that I need you as much as you once needed me?" "How so?" "My life was completely empty before I met you," he said, looking at his own hands. "I had everything money could buy, but I had nothing that really mattered. You showed me what it means to truly care about another person." Elena shook her head sadly. "That doesn't change the fact that you lied to me about who you were." "I know," Marcus said, "and I know I can't undo that lie now, but I can try to be completely honest from here on, if you give me a chance." At that moment, the attending physician came out of the room where he was examining Sophia. "She's fine, just a superficial cut on her forehead. She can go home today, but needs to come back in a week to remove the stitches." Elena got up to get her daughter, but before leaving she turned to Marcus one last time. "Thank you for paying for the exams and taking care of her, but this doesn't change anything between us." Marcus remained alone in the noisy hospital waiting room, watching her walk away with Sophia by the hand, knowing he had forever lost the only person who had ever made him feel truly complete and fulfilled. 2 months passed slowly, like a black and white silent movie. Marcus returned to his usual business life, but everything seemed to have completely lost color and flavor. Important strategic meetings seemed like discussions about matters with no real importance. The company's growing profits were just cold numbers on a computer screen, and he spent nights alone in the giant and silent apartment, looking at the city that blinked below through the enormous windows. But something profound had changed forever inside him. Eleanor's painful words echoed in his head every day without exception. "You watched me struggling," and for the first time in his life, Marcus began to really observe the employees who worked in the corridors he crossed daily without paying attention. Observe the people who cleaned his office while he was in endless meetings. Observe the real life that happened behind the scenes of his prosperous company. "Jennifer," he said to his secretary on a Monday morning, "I want you to organize urgent meetings with all department heads. We're going to completely review the working conditions of our employees. Did some specific problem happen, Mr. Marcus?" she asked, surprised by the unusual request. "Several problems I should have seen a long time ago," he replied firmly. Marcus began implementing changes he should have made years before. He created an ambitious subsidized housing program for employees who needed it. He installed a decent and comfortable rest area in the basement. He significantly increased the salaries of the entire kitchen and security staff, and created a robust emergency fund for employees in temporary financial difficulties. "Are you feeling well health-wise?" asked the financial director in a meeting, visibly concerned. "All these changes are going to cost the company a small fortune." "I'm better than I've been in many years," Marcus replied with conviction. "And the company has more than enough financial conditions to support all this." Eleanor, meanwhile, had gotten a job at a small community clinic on the outskirts of the city. The salary was much lower than at the restaurant, but at least she was working in the health area again, even if only as a general services assistant. Every day she woke up at 5 a.m., took to crowded buses to get to work, and returned home completely exhausted at the end of the afternoon. "You've lost a lot of weight, sister," said Carmen one night, serving a thin vegetable soup for both. "Are you eating properly at work?" "I'm fine," Eleanor lied, stirring the soup without any desire to eat. The truth was, she wasn't well at all. Not physically, not emotionally, not spiritually. She felt a deep longing for the conversations on the staircase, for the sandwiches shared with care, for the comforting feeling that someone genuinely cared about her day and her worries. Even knowing rationally that everything had been based on elaborate lies, a stubborn part of her heart still desperately missed Mike. It was on a rainy Thursday that everything began to change again. Eleanor was returning from work soaked in the rain when she found Lisa, a former colleague from the restaurant, at the very crowded bus stop. "Eleanor, what a joy to find you," said Lisa, hugging her warmly. "How are you? We heard you left the restaurant suddenly." "I'm managing," Eleanor replied diplomatically. "And you all? How are things there at the restaurant?" "Oh girl, you won't believe the changes that happened after you left," Lisa said, her eyes shining with excitement. "What kind of changes?" Eleanor asked, trying to sound disinterested. "You know those horrible dormitories that were in the basement, where we sometimes rested? He completely renovated everything. Now there are real and comfortable beds, decent and clean bathrooms, even a small equipped kitchen for those who need to stay at the restaurant during days off." Eleanor felt something move uncomfortably in her chest. "Really? And that's not all," Lisa continued excitedly. "He increased everyone's salary in the kitchen by 40%, created a fund to help employees with financial problems, and even hired a social worker to closely monitor those who were going through difficulties. Maria, who works in the dishwashing area, was going through a complicated separation, and they helped her find a better and cheaper apartment. Why do you think he did all this?" Eleanor asked, struggling to keep her voice controlled and natural. "Nobody knows the details exactly. They say he was doing some secret investigations to better understand how the company worked in practice. But whatever he discovered in that investigation hit him completely as a person and as a boss. That night, Elena couldn't sleep. She lay looking at the low ceiling of Carmen's apartment, thinking and rethinking Lisa's words. Marcus had really changed things concretely and permanently, not just for her, but for all the company's employees. Maybe his interest in knowing the reality of the employees had been genuine from the beginning, and not just a game of a bored rich man. The following Sunday, when she took Sophia to the music therapy session at the center, she asked the therapist how her daughter was evolving in treatment. "She's simply incredible," said the woman, smiling with pride. "Yesterday she drew and colored a complete mural by herself for everyone to see. It's really a special talent she has." And about the payment issue, Elena began hesitantly. "Oh, everything's perfectly up to date. The person responsible for the program has never been late a single day all these months. It's extremely rare to find someone so committed and responsible with a case they don't even know personally." Elena became thoughtful and quiet. Marcus continued paying religiously every month, even after everything that had happened between them, even after she had been so harsh and cruel to him at the hospital. That rainy afternoon, she made a decision she had been avoiding for 2 whole months. She took the bus to the downtown area, where the restaurant was located, and stood on the wet sidewalk in front of the building, observing the movement of people. She saw employees entering and leaving with a visibly different posture, less tired, less desperate, less defeated. She saw a new sign at the main entrance: "We're hiring, fair working conditions and dignified salaries." It was then that she finally understood clearly. Marcus hadn't changed because of her specifically. He had changed because she had opened his eyes to something that had always been right there in front of him. His goal of disguising himself had been genuine from the first day. He really wanted to understand the real needs of employees, to be able to improve working conditions. And now she needed to make a courageous decision. Would she continue hiding behind wounded pride and hurt? Or would she have the courage to admit that maybe she had judged Marcus unfairly and hastily? Elena stood on the sidewalk for almost an hour, watching the restaurant's movement under the light rain of Chicago. It was strange to be there as a stranger, looking from outside at a place that had been her home and workplace for months. She was about to leave when she saw a familiar figure exiting through the main door of the building. It was Marcus, but he looked completely different, thinner, with deep dark circles marking his face, walking slowly like someone carrying an invisible and heavy weight on his shoulders. He stopped in front of the restaurant, looked up toward the windows of his office, then sighed deeply, as if gathering strength to continue another difficult day. It was when his eyes met hers from across the wet street. For a long and tense moment, neither moved. Elena felt her heart race violently, all the words she had mentally rehearsed dissolving in her dry throat. Marcus looked as if he was seeing a ghost from the past, with a delicate mixture of hope and fear stamped on his tired face. He crossed the street slowly, stopping a few meters away from her, respecting her personal space. "Hi," he said, his voice harsher and more fragile than she remembered. "Hi," she replied, breathing deeply to gather all the courage she could find. "I came here to apologize to you." Marcus blinked several times, visibly surprised. "Apologize for what?" "For being so harsh and cruel to you that day. For not trying to understand your side of the story." Elena looked at her own hands, wet from rain. "I talked to Lisa a few days ago. I heard about all the changes you made here. I realized that maybe I judged your intentions completely wrong." "Elena, let me finish talking, please," she asked. "I was very angry, hurt deep in my soul, and I said horrible and unfair things. You lied about your name and your job, but you never lied about who you were inside, about your character. And I missed you terribly all these days." Marcus felt something tighten painfully in his chest. "I missed you too, every day, every night. Do you think," she hesitated, biting her lip, "do you think we could try to be friends again? Start everything over with honesty?" Marcus looked into her eyes for a moment that seemed eternal. "Just friends? What do you mean, Elena? I can't pretend I only want your friendship. You mean much more than that to me." He took a cautious step toward her. "If we're going to really start over, I want it to be complete. I want to get to know you even better. I want you to know me without any masks or lies. I want a real and honest chance with you. Elena felt her heart accelerate dangerously. Marcus, I know I hurt you deeply. I know I'll have to regain your trust step by step. But if you give me an opportunity, a real chance, I promise I'll be honest about absolutely everything from here forward. She was quiet for a tense moment, looking at him under the rain. She saw the raw sincerity in his eyes, the way he held his breath, anxiously waiting for her answer. I want to give myself a chance, she said finally. A chance to believe that maybe I deserve to be truly happy, that maybe we both deserve an opportunity. Marcus's face lit up like the sun appearing between clouds. Does that mean ... Does that mean we can try again, slowly, one day at a time, building something solid, but this time without lies, without secrets, without masks? She agreed solemnly. Want to get some hot coffee? Elena asked, smiling for the first time in months. I know a simple and nice place nearby. I'd love to, Marcus said. And when he smiled back, she finally saw the man she had fallen in love with on that staircase. In the small and cozy cafe, they talked for hours, as if they were meeting for the first time. Marcus told about his lonely childhood in an apartment too big, about how he had inherited the company very young and gotten lost in the middle of so much money and responsibility he didn't know how to use. Elena talked about the dreams she had before Sophia got sick, about how she still thought about specializing in pediatric oncology to help children with special needs like her daughter. I have a proposal to make, Marcus said when the coffee was already cold in the cups. How about you come back to work at the restaurant? Marcus ... It's not favoritism, he hurried to say. I created a new position, employee welfare coordinator, someone who truly understands what they go through, who can help those who are in difficulty. No one better than you for this function. Elena thought for a moment, absent-mindedly stirring the sugar that had already dissolved. And my studies, I still want to return to culinary arts, flexible schedule, part-time. You work mornings, study afternoons, and there's a scholarship waiting for you at a private college here in the area too. People will say it's favoritism, that you're giving me a job because we're dating, she said worriedly. Let them say what they want. I know why I'm hiring you, and you know too. Elena bit her lip thinking, okay, but I want to start like any new employee. No special treatment in front of others, at least in the beginning. Deal. In the following months, they grew closer again slowly and carefully. Marcus religiously kept his promise to be honest about absolutely everything, from work details to his most intimate fears. Elena learned to trust him again, brick by brick. The relationship began discreetly, meetings after work, simple dinners at neighborhood restaurants, conversations that lasted through the night. Why don't you take me to your apartment? Elena asked one night, after 3 months of secretly dating. Do you want to see it? I want to know everything about your life. Marcus's penthouse apartment was exactly what she expected. Enormous, luxurious, but completely soulless. It looks like a store display, she said, walking through the rooms empty of life. That's exactly how I felt before I met you, Marcus replied honestly. Beautiful on the outside, empty inside. It was that night that Elena said for the first time that she loved him, and Marcus, who had kept those words in his heart for months, could finally say them back without fear. After 6 months, they made the relationship public. There was gossip at the restaurant, of course, malicious comments from some jealous employees, but Marcus didn't care, and Elena had learned not to worry about others' opinions. I'm thinking about something, Marcus said one night, while they were having dinner at Carmen's modest apartment. Sophia was playing guitar in the corner of the living room, and the older woman was watching her favorite soap opera. About what? Elena asked. You 3 deserve a better place to live, Marcus. We've already talked about this. It's not a favor, he interrupted gently. It's an investment in our future. I'm serious about us, Elena. I want to marry you when you graduate. Elena almost choked on her food. Are you proposing to me? I'm warning you that I'm going to propose, Marcus smiled. I want you to finish college, establish yourself in your profession, and then we'll make everything official. But meanwhile, I want you all to have a real home." Carmen stopped watching her soap opera. "Boy, are you serious? Very serious. I found a beautiful apartment, 3 bedrooms, near Sophia's therapy center, and your college, Elena, and Carmen. You deserve a peaceful retirement after everything you've done for this family." The elderly woman began to cry with emotion. "I don't know what to say. Say we deserve to be happy." Elena smiled, taking Marcus's hand. "Say that sometimes miracles really do happen." The new apartment was perfect. 3 spacious bedrooms, a large living room where Sophia could play her guitar freely, and a kitchen where everyone fit for breakfast. Marcus also hired Sandra, a specialized caregiver, to help with Sophia when Elena was studying or working. "She's evolving impressively," Sandra said one afternoon after a therapy session at home. "With this new routine, the constant stimulation, she's even speaking some words clearly." Elena smiled, organizing her culinary arts books on the living room table. She still had months before graduating, and Marcus had kept his promise to wait patiently. But every night when he came to have dinner with them, she saw a small shine of expectation in his eyes, as if he were counting the days. Carmen had adapted wonderfully to the new apartment. Marcus had insisted on paying a dignified pension for her, and now the elderly woman spent her days cooking for everyone and spoiling Sophia, as if she were her own granddaughter. "Have you two thought about a date?" asked Carmen one night, serving pudding for dessert. "Date for what, Carmen?" Elena pretended not to understand, but was smiling. "For the wedding, silly. Do you think I'm blind?" Marcus laughed. "She hasn't officially said yes yet." "Then why don't you ask once and for all?" Carmen stamped her foot. "I'm dying to see my girl in her wedding dress." That night, after everyone went to sleep, Marcus and Elena stayed on the apartment balcony, looking at the lights of Chicago that never slept. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, seeing her somewhat distracted. "About how life changes fast," she replied, resting her head on his shoulder. "A year ago, I was sleeping on the floor of a storage room. Today, I'm here with you, planning a future I couldn't even imagine in my wildest dreams." "And what future do you imagine for us?" Marcus asked, gently playing with her hair. "A future where Sophia grows up happy and safe, where I can help other children with special needs like her, where we build a real family together." "Family?" Elena pulled away to look at him. "You never thought about having children before meeting me?" "Never. Now it's practically all I think about. A house full of children running and playing, Sophia teaching guitar to her siblings, Carmen spoiling the grandchildren." "Grandchildren?" Elena laughed. "How many children do you want?" "However many you give me," Marcus replied completely seriously. 2, 3, half a dozen. "Doesn't matter. Half a dozen is a lot," she laughed. "Let's start with 1 and see how it goes." Elena kissed him right down the simple balcony of the apartment they had chosen together, feeling her heart overflow with pure happiness. There in that little corner, with Sophia sleeping safely in the next room, Carmen snoring softly on the living room sofa, and Marcus planning a future full of love, she knew she had found exactly where she belonged in the world. "You know what?" she whispered against his lips. "I think I'm ready for that marriage proposal. Really, really, really. But do it right, with a ring and everything." Marcus laughed, taking a small velvet box from his pants pocket. "I thought you'd never ask." And right there, on the modest balcony of the apartment that represented their new beginning, surrounded by the constant noise of the big city and the love of a family that had formed in the most unconventional way, Marcus proposed to Elena, knowing the answer would be yes before even asking the question. Because sometimes the best stories begin in the most unlikely and impossible places, between completely different people, and grow slowly until they transform into something stronger and more resistant than any obstacle life can put in their way. Did this story touch your heart? Subscribe to the channel for more stories that show how true love can flourish even when everything seems lost. Leave your like and share with someone who needs to believe that everyone deserves to find their special person in life. Comment which part moved you most. Was it the reunion in the rain, building the new family, or the marriage proposal. Your interaction helps us bring more stories that warm the heart and show that miracles can happen when we least expect them. A warm hug from our entire team. Thank you so much for watching until the end, for being part of this beautiful family that formed here on the channel. May God bless you and your family. Until the next story that will warm your heart.